Good morning, America, and our 51st state, Canada. Welcome. I'm editorial cartoonist Ted Rall, coming to you from the left.
And I'm editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right. So Greenland would be 52nd state. Panama would be 53rd.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And Gaza would be 54th.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a lot more stars.
It's easier. Well, as a vexillologist, which is someone who studies and is knowledgeable about flags, which you are, is it easier for the United States to acquire additional stars on its flag in even numbers, or does it make no difference?
Well, we had for a short period of time in 1959, we had 49 states. If you recall, we did not have, I can't remember.
I think Hawaii was the 50th.
Last. Yeah. So we had Alaska for a few months, and the flag, collectors do collect 49 star flags. Yeah. So we've had odd number before. It looks weird. But yeah, it's doable. I've always thought that we should just go back to the Betsy Ross flag, the circle, because it's simple, it's iconic, it has the kind of symbolism that Americans like, and you don't have to futz with, if we had 4 more states.
Well, and at the rate we're going, we could end up with hundreds within the next 4 years.
Yeah, Trump just might as well take over, I don't know, Djibouti, because it's
your favorite.
I know.
By your standards, when you say the United States, I've always believed, I'm not a vexillologist, but I do like flags, always have. I've always thought the United States didn't really have a great flag.
I think we grew up with it. That's why we like it. And It became symbolic. It's still fairly simple to draw. I mean, you have 50. If you want to be really accurate, you have to draw the 13 stars, the 13 stripes. You have to draw the 50 stars. But for the most part, it's fairly easy to draw. That's one of the rules of, good flag, bad flag, which you can get the free brochure from the North American Vexillology Association if you go to them online. I know. It's exciting.
Who knew?
But
wanted to know.
Is it a great flag? No, I mean, there are some flags that are, like the old, frankly, one of my favorite flags of all time is the old Soviet Union flag. Very simple, elegant.
The hammer. That's a nice flag.
Yeah, I liked it better with the rays coming off the sun, the rising sun.
That's the Imperial Navy flag, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So
the rising sun flag.
So just the dot was always sort of like Japan, period.
Yeah. Japan. Any questions? If so, shut the fuck up. Not interested. Don't want to hear.
And there are some other flags that if those of us of a certain age who grew up in the World Almanac and they had that couple of pages of flags in it.
Yes.
And the number one flag that every person thought was awesome.
Mozambique.
Nepal.
What was Nepal?
Remember, because it's that weird sort of has that shape. It's like almost 2 triangles. It's not the traditional. It looks like one, but it's not. I mean, it's based on a prayer flag.
Ohio has a pennant, right?
Yeah, it does. Yes, it does.
Which is a strange shape.
Yeah.
Having grown up in Ohio, I was used to it, but it is objectively a strange looking flag.
Well, I love the California flag, which says, it breaks all the rules. It's not easy to draw. It has words on it. So it says California Republic. It's got the bear, hello, I'm a bear.
But it's good. It's a cool bear, though. It's a 19th century bear.
Yeah, it can be. Actually, you will love this. You know who actually designed the California flag? Drew the first one?
Is it General Fremont?
It is. Oh my
God. I guessed that. I did not know that.
Yeah, he did.
But I knew he was a California nationalist. So
he was. So there you go. Yeah. So
John Fremont.
Yeah, as we continue,
Free Soil Party,
which dovetails well into today's topic, which is the United States, is this the end of the American experiment? A lot of discussion on this, and I think that, and we've talked about this subject has come up so many times. Let's face it, we've gone to war over this topic. With the bloodiest war in American history, in the Civil War, the country seems to have come unwound and gotten itself back together. I don't know that there have been this many existential threats to the basic tenets of our democracy
That's a big statement. Would you care to enumerate some?
Yeah, really quickly, I'll bullet point it. But first and foremost, we've never had a chief executive who wanted to literally just dismantle the checks and balances that are a major part of our democracy. Things like spending money. I mean, something as basic as that. I mean, when Donald Trump has executive orders saying we're not going to spend this money or we're not going to do that, that's not his job by any metric, the reasonable constitutional metric.
Because the legislative branch appropriates funds.
Yes, that is their job. And what's really funny is that the pillars of pudding that is our Congress today are letting him get away with this, and so it's setting very dangerous precedents.
I mean, we should explain for people who didn't follow the ins and outs of this very quickly, just in one or two sentences. The Musk's Doge team and also the Trump administration writ large basically interfered with the Treasury Department, which issues trillions of dollars of payments a month, and basically ordered them to cut off all payments for things that were already underway, with some exceptions like Social Security checks, and to sort of take a look and see. They were like, well, we don't want any money to go out until we've had a look-see, and a judge ruled that was a federal judge stepped in and said, you can't do that. You don't have that authority. I guess saner heads prevailed inside the White House and told the president that he'd better listen to the judge. So that seems to be kind of okay for now. All right. Anyway, you go ahead. What other threats are we talking about?
Well, you mentioned the Doge teams, which are unelected, run by a guy who's unelected, going after, doesn't it strike you, Ted? I mean, we both love history. The descriptions of these like 20 somethings and these high schoolers, literally high schoolers, coming to going to different bureaus of the federal government. And like, it really feels like the Cultural Revolution.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. So for people who don't know, that was the period from 1966 to 1976 in China, when Mao Zedong decided that, communism needed to amp it up, step it up a notch, and have internal revolution, as well as, we'd already had the revolution in 1949. And so during that period, in particular, these young party cadres, often young girls, they were running around rampant, having struggle sessions with like people who were allegedly part of the landlord class, or often wasn't even true, and basically all sorts of score settling. But like these 15-year-olds and 17-year-olds would pop in and tell people what to do. As late as the late 90s, when I was in China, I think that was the first time I went, there were still these like party cadres, really? Very young, who were running around. They would, first of all, the loudspeakers would come on at like 4:30 in the morning, like, it's like, get up and build socialism, you assholes, and like, do jumping jacks. And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. And then even like, for example, at the border, they're the ones who like search the bags, and they're terrifying, actually.
Yeah, well, because because the American Psychiatric Association,
young people. Yeah.
Well, it's the American Psychiatric Association a few years back determined that teenagers are literally, by the modern definition, insane.
Right.
So all of a sudden
really
now,
insane until you're 25, really.
The likes of Elon Musk and Donald Trump have sicked them on the American government. Now, I'm not saying that going after and
there's been some resistance, right? The guy in charge of the Treasury payments quit rather than
he did.
have anything to do with it. Mm-hmm.
Well, he didn't want to hand over that information to the Muskites. What are they? Muscovites, Muskies,
muskrats. Some people call them
muskrats. Oh, I like that, muskrats.
I mean, I don't know. It's like, part of the concern here is, of course, that he is a Silicon Valley tech bro. And a lot of this is, those people, they traffic in info, right? That's their business. And so like, getting government data, including not just about like, say, personal individuals like you and me, but also, vendors and in foreign corporations and so on, all this information, employer ID numbers, blah, blah, blah. It's all in those systems that Musk has gained access to quite a few of them already. And yeah, they're basically running around like little terrorists with letters from Trump saying, you have to do whatever these people say.
Yeah. So all of that being said, in addition, now the only bulwark against these, what I feel are obviously and glaringly unconstitutional actions by President Trump, there's not getting a pushback from the Congress where it should be coming from. You have
Speaker Johnson has made that clear that there will be no pushback from Congress.
Exactly. So now you have the only
from the Democrats. The Democrats are not going to, for example, they signed off on Marco Rubio, 99 votes to 0, right? Every Democrat voted for him, and he is supervising a lot of for example, the dismantling of USAID. And did you hear the latest about Donald Trump? Donald Trump just announced that he's dismissing the board of the Kennedy Center.
Yes.
And has announced that he himself will be the chairman of the Kennedy Center because, when you think of the arts, you think of Trump.
Oh, nothing but class. Nothing but class. Gold toilets for everybody. So there's things like that. Does he have the authority? The overarching, the imperial presidency we were warned about in the 70s has come to fruition. I mean, it's clearly in act. It's attempting to come to fruition, right? I mean, right,
we're talking about this today on February 8th. The inauguration was 3 weeks ago.
No, it's 30 years ago, Ted. Come on.
He's throwing shit at the wall to see if it sticks. That's what's going on here.
Well, but again, to finish my point, the only bulwark against all of this is the courts now. They're the only ones who are going to fight against this. Again, unelected individuals which will be tantamount to deciding the future of our country. But the courts now, let me ask you this, Ted, if let's say something goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, and they say what you will about these guys, they seem to like the Constitution. We'll see if it's true, how much they like it, but they seem to like it. And they rule against a particular favorite Trump initiative. Trump, I mean, what enforcement mechanisms do they have? They have none.
No, and it's true that they have none. So, I mean, first of all, it's far from a sure proposition that they will rule against Trump. They might decide to let the government do what the government wants to do. They often do, but sometimes they do rule against them. And a great example of that would be the Hamdi decision, which basically ruled in favor of Osama bin Laden's driver, his chauffeur, who was at Guantanamo Bay and successfully sued for habeas corpus rights while he was interned at Guantanamo Bay. The Supreme Court ruled in his favor that, in fact, the general theory of Guantanamo is false, that it's an extra legal location where there's no law that really applies, no Cuban law, no American law. It's just sort of in the ether, like the asteroid belt. And the Supreme Court said, no, that's not true. It's under American jurisdiction. If you were to mug someone at Guantanamo Bay, you would be arrested, right? So there's U.S. and you'd be subject to U.S. law. But what did the Bush administration and subsequent administrations do? Nothing. They have not granted their habeas rights to the Gitmo detainees. Now there's fewer of them. Well, fewer terrorist suspect detainees. Now there are thousands of detainees at Gitmo over the last week because Trump has sent them there. They're migrants and migrant applicants, and even a lot of these have they're citizens of countries that would welcome them back, but Trump is refusing to send them. So this is a whole different thing. But anyway, the point is the Supreme Court can be ignored. Who was it who said, like, what army does the Supreme Court have?
Wasn't that Stalin?
Was it? It was someone.
What troops do the courts have, or something along those lines? Yeah. That is that is the crux of this question now. And you're right. I mean, this is an impotent child throwing stuff all over the room, seeing if it sticks, how much of it will stick, how much of it will stick. I mean, and an imperial presidency is a terrifying thing, and it is. I mean, it's terrifying because it's terrifying. That's not irrational to have. We fought a revolution to break away from a king, right? We have worked very hard to not have an imperial anything, and now all of a sudden we have this in everything. And people are now waking up. For instance, I was mentioning on your show I was on the other day, and there's a large population of Venezuelans, and I can't remember where they were, but they were very much for Trump. And now all of a sudden they're stunned, Ted, that Donald Trump lied to them and is backing away from his promise for I forget the acronym. Oh golly. But it's effectively protective immigrants who are here. They're escaping totalitarianism.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Venezuela is, if you're in opposition there, your life is not pleasant. So they fled to the United States, and now that community is up in arms. And I'm just going, you've got to be kidding me. Really? You trusted this guy to follow through and say that he would not deport your people after he talked about mass deportations. We mentioned Marco Rubio. He just signed on a deal with the mega prison in El Salvador, if I'm not mistaken. So sending U.S. citizens or people who potentially could be to contracting with how can we put this, Ted?
Despot?
A super legal, a uber legal, a
extra legal,
or
extrajudicial.
And moving Americans,
which sounds like it's more judicial, but it's actually less it's
considerably less.
Yeah.
So to get back to my original question, the original thesis of our discussion here, we're headed towards democracy as you and I grew up in 1960s and 70s. America came to understand what that stood for. For all of his faults, Richard Nixon, and it was a constitutional crisis when the courts demanded and the prosecutors demanded that he release the tapes, and he continually said no. It got to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that yes, indeed, he did have to give up the tapes. Now, he was faced with a question. Does he follow the rule of law, follow the court, release the tapes, or does he tell them to go fuck themselves? They're his. You have no right to them. And, you got a problem with that, send your army, and clearly Nixon did the right thing, even though he knew it would be the end of his presidency. And indeed it was. Right now, is this hysteria? Is this, is this hyperbole? Are people like me who see this as the end of the American experiment? Am I full of crap, Ted?
Well, do you see it as the end, or do you see it as a potential end?
If present trends continues, if the courts are unable to rein this in, then yes, it's the end of democracy as I know it. Is it the end of the United States? No. Are we going to, is it going to collapse and dogs and cats sleeping together? No, it's not going to be anything, anything apocryphal, but it will be the end of the American experiment as I believe the founding fathers thought it to be.
I think it's okay. So the famous story about the first when Kissinger met Zhou Enlai in China, and Kissinger asked Zhou Enlai, both of them students of history, what he thought of the French Revolution, and Zhou Enlai famously said, "It's too early to tell." And this was, of course, a statement about how the Chinese take the long view. It's too early to tell because it's been 3 weeks. We're going to know more when the Supreme Court does rule, and then we'll see whether the president complies and his team complies with what the Supremes have to say. If he doesn't, then yes, your worst fears are going to be realized. If he, at that point, we're moving into something different. We've already had a steady degradation, I think, in my view, of what this country supposedly was in terms of being a democracy. Guantanamo, legalized torture, the Supreme Court putting its thumb on the scale in the 2000 election. A lot of these things are really, moving retrograde away. We do have to say January 6th also. These are all ways in which our system of government is under attack, and it's degrading, and it's sort of circling the drain. I think that we're in danger. It depends on, this is a test, right? I mean, all systems are tested from time to time. I mean, probably the greatest test that this country ever faced was the Civil War. And the question is, will we come up short? I think, please tell me, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Well, maybe I do, but I'm not going to. My feeling here is that probably we're going to come up short. It doesn't feel like the Democratic Party is a viable opposition organization. There's no organized, forget to the left of the Democratic Party, there is nothing going on. There have been no substantial protests about anything. The press is completely defanged and emasculated. They're paying Trump like settlements, like tens of millions of dollars for cases that before, 3 years ago, they would have fought tooth and nail to the bitter end, and they would have refused to pay. They're paying him bribes, basically. So, and there's people like us, nobody's really listening to us, right? So the people just basically don't care. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And you don't have you can't have a Democratic or a Republican, small r Republican system unless the people care. They have to keep an eye on the stove, make sure the pot's not boiling over. Right now, no one cares. They voted. Trump's running crazy. I mean, and here's some things. I don't expect anyone to care about what's happening to USAID. Most Americans don't even know what it is. Okay. And I don't expect them to care about the Kennedy Center. Most of them will never go, and they'll view it as a bunch of effete liberals doing that. It'll be when things start to stretch out into, say, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, things that hit them in the wallet. That'll be the test. Then we'll really see, how people respond, whether they respond at all. I was really disappointed with my fellow leftists with the complete lack of response to Trump's plan to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip. I was also disappointed with the UN in their failure to have an emergency meeting of the Security Council to discuss really the strongest possible response to the Trump imposing sanctions on the International Criminal Court of Justice for, in retaliation for going after Netanyahu, and also for suggesting that the U.S. should participate in the ethnic cleansing of Gaza and the removal forcibly at gunpoint of 1.8 million people. Parenthetically, that's Israel and the United States tacitly confirming that 500,000 Gazans have died in the Gaza Strip since October 7th, because the pre-war population was 2.3 million. Just want to take note of that.
Yeah, all of that put together, coupled with, it's flummoxed. It's frustrating. That's the least emotion that you have when you start looking and going down this list of things that they are going to do. Could you imagine if Trump were president during the 1930s? You would have had Trump resort and casino Auschwitz.
Right.
It's like,
Trump would have been on the German side then. Like
I say, we're partnered with them.
It's like, you guys are awesome. Love it. Love your work. Love what you do.
The plan for, what's weird is let's real quick. The Gaza proposal was obviously off the top of his head, because Netanyahu's standing next to him going, the look on his face is like,
the look on his face was also like the cat that ate the canary. Like, wow, ka-ching.
Well, yes and no. It was also the, wait, what? I didn't see. He never mentioned this before.
Trump also suggested that all the Palestinians be removed from the West Bank too,
which is hilarious. Saying that Egypt and Jordan take them. It's like, wait, we're not taking refugees from. Wait, what?
Well, not to mention they gave it the office, right, in 1948 and after the 1967 war. They both took in hundreds of thousands of Palestinians.
So again, coming back to this is, for all of the rants by the MAGA nation, I want my country back. Ted, I want my country back. I want normalcy. I want to go 2 or 3 days in a row without thinking about the president and what batshit crazy thing they said that day.
Sorry, Santa can't give you your wish, little boy.
No, but
I'm
additionally, I want a constitutional republic, and we are moving away from that quickly. Here's the thing: none of us should be surprised. No one should be surprised at what we're looking at here right now.
No, but they are surprised at the blitzkrieg aspect of it. And I mean, look, I gotta say, frankly, that's smart. If you were the president
brilliant.
and I was advising you, I would tell you to do the same thing. It keeps your opponents, your enemies off balance. I mean, one time, but there is a way to deal with this, right? Democrats are basically like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like, there's so much. I'm over. Cannot compute. But I mean, okay, so I get that's your initial response. First of all, you should have seen this coming. You should have had a war room ready, and just been like, this is how we're going to respond to the things we're going to respond to. But what you do is you do what I did when I was mugged by like 8 kids. I was attacked by like 8-10 kids one time. They're all like little. Their little hands are like snatching, trying to grab into my pockets and stuff. And my first thought is, holy shit, there's like 8 kids who are 16 hands. They're all pulling me up at the same time. This really blows. My second thought was, choose one and beat him up. So I did. Then I chose a second one and beat him up. And then I looked around for the third, and no one wanted to be third, and they ran away. So if you're the Democrats, you choose 1 or 2 things that you're going to take a stand on, and you make that stand. Like, and you can say, like, we're not going to fund the government, whatever you want to do. But like, it's not like the opposition party doesn't have options available to it, right, Scott? I mean, wasn't it not so long ago that Republicans were in the minority in Congress and they were giving Democratic presidents a really hard time?
Yeah, there are mechanisms in place, and they were put there specifically so the minority group would have a voice in the democracy. So yes, they don't want to be viewed as obstructionists, but if you really do believe that this is fascism, if you really do believe that this is the dismantling of the American experiment, then standing in the way is okay. I mean, but the Democrats don't seem to have that. And that's the last part of my equation and my thesis here, Ted, is that you have an opposition party that is fractured, disjointed, disorganized, and completely unable to respond to, as you've just mentioned, this cacophony of edicts. Steve Bannon mentioned in the first term, that was their plan. Put 3 things a day up. 3 big things a day, and it totally throws them off target, off kilter. And you're right. So your take of how to handle the attack of little minions is absolutely correct. You pick 1, you pick 2, you say this is the hill we're going to die on. But I would challenge any of my Democratic friends to tell me, what hill are you willing to die on, and where has your leadership stood like a fist against this onslaught? You can't. I mean,
they don't.
They
don't even really. I mean, and I mean, it seems like they've gotten the most outraged about Musk and about USAID, and
which is,
look, I mean, ironically, USAID is the Trump administration defanging itself, because it's basically a bribe operation for foreign policy, and it promotes the president's foreign policy around the world. It's not like just a bunch of goody two shoes throwing out rice bags to starving people. It's like really truly a sharp instrument that goes to reward American friends and punish American enemies. I've seen them at work. It's not exactly the most competent operation when it comes to, getting need, but it does all sorts of things that, like, I don't know if Trump's aware of. For example, it subsidizes American farmers, right? So American farmers generate a surplus of wheat and other products, And well, USAID buys all that crap that no one would buy otherwise, and they ship it overseas. Now, a lot of lefties don't like it because it lands in places that really kind of, when they say there's a famine, we think of a famine as a place where crops have failed. Often a famine is not a place where that's happened at all. There's plenty of food. There's no money, people don't have money to buy food with. So all that happens is that this foreign aid comes in and it puts the local farmers out of business and destroys local agrarian economies. So there's all sorts of problems with it. But from this, it's the kind of program that Trump should like. I mean, I don't like it. I'm happy to see it go. But it's like, it's funny to me that but that's what the Democrats are upset about. They're pushing for the preservation of an organization that probably they shouldn't care that much about.
Well, and plus, while it's a huge organization, it really will hurt. I mean, it will hurt dramatically aid relief around the world.
That's true.
But Americans don't give a shit. We really don't.
No.
And
Americans don't like foreign aid, and I have to admit that I'm one of them. I don't accept. I'm an economic nationalist. I don't, as long as a single American, needs a dental implant and can't afford one. As soon as a single American is having trouble meeting their bills every month, if a single American is sleeping outside, why are we sending money overseas? I don't get it. And I think a lot of people agree with me, both on the left and the right.
And there have been rumors of corruption. The American press, being the American press, is loath to investigate that because USAID seems to be doing the Lord's work. But when you slosh around tens of and hundreds of billions of dollars around the world, golly, some of it's going to end up where it shouldn't have been.
I like the talking point. It's only 1% of the federal budget. I'm like, only?
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So, I have a friend, he just got, should probably have him on the show. I wonder if he'd come, but he just got admitted into the Supreme Court bar. Very smart guy. And he's very optimistic about the future. He says the institutions are strong, that, we will come out of this just fine. To Ted Rall, a famous American political philosopher, once said that we've already gone through one term of Donald Trump and the institutions are just fine. So is all of this just hyperbole? I would ask you, Ted, who I believe you're related to Ted Rall, to expound. Do you still hold that we are going to be just fine, and that this is, there's maybe a tax on these institutions, but the institutions will indeed hold?
Well, I think so. I do. I think that this is. I mentioned the USAID example in order to sort of point out Trump's incompetence. He's basically getting rid of something he should like, and if there's more of that, then it's going to be. Remember that Elon Musk has only promised 6 months of his time to Doge. His partner in crime, Vivek Ramaswamy, only lasted 3 hours into the administration. So, as you and I both know,
the next governor of Ohio,
as you said, when we talked about billionaires taking over newspapers, it's like billionaires and their toys, they lose interest, they move on. Elon Musk has companies to run, rockets to crash. He has stuff to do. So maybe figure out how to make that door handle work on your Teslas. Try that. So he's going to leave. They're going to throw a lot of shit at the wall over the next few months. A lot of it's designed to drive liberals crazy, like what's going on, with the Kennedy Center, for example. They're going to go after like the, NPR and like the, National Endowment for the Arts and all these like liberal favorite, kind of spending things. They say they're going to turn their attention. They're going to dismantle the Department of Education. They're going to turn their attention, maybe even to the Pentagon. That I want to see if it's true.
That's next week.
That could take some time. There's some money to be trimmed there, to say the least.
No doubt.
But they're gonna raise hell. They're gonna have a wild party, but eventually the wild rumpus will come to an end. And sleepy time will come to an end, and that'll be it. And it's very. I don't think it's easy to break the deep state the way as quickly as they think they can. I think in a certain sense, I understand why Democrats are sort of keeping their powder dry, because they spent the last 4 years acting hysterically, and it got them a big loss in last November by saying, if Trump comes in, we're all going to die. Well, it's like, so they don't want to repeat that, but they're going to need to be an opposition party, and they're going to at some point. But I agree with your analysis. I think it's going to all come down to the United States Supreme Court. They're going to decide whether this system continues pretty much the way we've known it or not. And I'm not sure. I suspect the way this is going to go is that they're going to give the president some of the things that he wants that he shouldn't have, and they're going to turn him down on other stuff. It's going to be a mixed bag, and then we're going to have to sort it all out. I don't think it's like as simple as like it's 1933, Hitler has come to power, the Congress is not going to meet anymore. I don't think it's like that. I think this is more like the slow degradation, not so slow, but it's the continuing degradation of the system that, like all systems, contains the seeds of its self-destruction in the founding documents back in 1789. And now there are things that they didn't think of and they couldn't have thought of. And now, we are, and we're going to, the system is falling apart. Trump is more, I think, in my view, and all of this is more of a symptom of the problem than
absolutely.
It is really the cause of it.
Oh, when he came down the escalator in 2015, many of us were like, oh my God. And he's doing this just to sell more Trump steaks.
Yes.
He was shocked. His family was shocked at the success of this campaign. Mm-hmm. And now it's all of a sudden evolved into this thing. Let's leave on a thought. Jack Benny was once asked about the ratings for his radio show. He had gone in a week's time, the ratings had dropped like 12 points. Mm. And there's panic in his team. He said, don't worry about it. He says, don't worry about it. Next week we'll be back bigger than ever. And indeed, that's what happened. His point was, and he had said to his producers and to his team, I don't worry about big drops week to week or week gains, because that's momentary. That can be a myriad of reasons. Mm. What I worry about is when I start losing 1 or 2 points a week. And that trend continues. And that's what's happened to American democracy beginning, I think, and Ted has a point, with the election of 2000. You had this slow drip, 1, 2 points at a time. And then we're going to look around and we're going to be friggin' hungry.
I do think that's what happened. Yeah. No,
I hope you're right, Ted. I hope your optimism is correct, but
that's optimism.
That's what passes for optimism on the DMZ America podcast.
Okay, then.
We're not as doomed as we think we are.
Well, we're doomed. We're doomed.
I think we are.
We are going to go. I do think we're going out not with a bang, but with a whimper.
Yeah. So there you go, Ted. Where can we see all things Teddian? Or you're going?
Well, we're going to play our little outro, and then.
Okay, but what about the podcast? The people out there who are listening who don't have video, they're living in places like Indiana and other third world countries. What about Botswana and Indiana?
Oh, well, that's true. Okay, so they can they can go to gocomics.com/Ted Rall to find my comics. They can also go to rall.com, which is my website. And they can listen to the other show I do, TMI show, here on YouTube and Rumble, and on everywhere that you can get an RSS audio feed. And that's 10 o'clock a.m. live Eastern time in Indiana. That's 9 a.m. Central time. And that's so that'll be that's Monday through Friday. And but you can stream it after the fact on YouTube or on Rumble. How about you, Scott? Where can people find all of your stuff?
You can go to gocomics.com. You can go to Chicago Tribune. You can go to the Dallas Morning News. You can go to smirkonish.com. And of course, you can go to Center Clip, which are these mini podcasts. Ted and I do them. I forgot to do mine yesterday, Ted.
No.
Because that was the Winners and Losers Day. But I'll post one today.
I hate the Winner and Losers Day. You're good at that, though. I don't know how to
make
do
lists.
it.
I just make lists.
Oh, I just do the work, Ted.
Sorry, man.
Like that's easy.
Yeah, I literally make lists and I read them. Then I read them and say who won, who lost. I mean, but I have to think about it. Anyway, so yeah,
that's one of your nefarious tricks.
Yeah, sort of like, when I actually lose weight, it's like eat less, exercise more. God, the libs were right. Bastards. All right. Well, Ted, go have a beautiful day. All of you out there have a wonderful life. We'll post another pod sooner rather than later. And in the meantime, all hail our fearless orange leader.
All hail. And here comes the outro. Sing something.
Okay, and by the way, real quick, we're coming up on the 200th episode. We're going to come up with something special for.
Okay, it'll be nude. Okay, bye.
God.